Hi. In the last video we talked about the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and how we could decipher the time scales with regards to previous magnetic reversals, and not only did we work out that it was 780,000 years according to the solidified magma that had set in the polarity facing north at this present time, we also found that by studying previous magma flows from the Atlantic ridges that we could go back quite a while in our history and find that there was several also magnetic reversals that had taken place, and that on average they were around about 350,000 years. In the last video we discussed the fact that it was 100 years since this magnetic reversal started to get underway, and we also briefly talked about people's attitudes with regards to this very rare event. After all, it is only 178,000 years ago since the last magnetic reversal of this kind took place, and just because things are progressing very slowly up until recent times, that doesn't mean that there isn't still an element of great changes that could take place on this earth in the near future. I worked out for you what I calculated 1 degree of shift with the poles was in miles. It's around about 46.3 miles. Just to give you a bit of detail on it, the pole has migrated since the 1900s a total of 1,504 miles or thereabouts, and that is around about 32 degrees. That's at this present day. It travelled around 413 miles in the last 5 years, and that's the equivalent to around 9 degrees. So it gives you an idea as to possibly how long we have before we reach that 40 degrees that I've talked about in other videos, where we start to see even greater changes. Now, one of the things that we noticed in the trend going back to the 1900s is that as it was moving through time, it started to pick up speed and therefore cover more distance in less time, and we've seen this 2 or 3 times. It's like it's gone up a gear, and when it's done so, it's gathered more pace and migrated faster. Around 2014 it was travelling in a nice vector towards Siberia. You can see from the pins in the chart they're pretty much all in a straight line other than this one, and this was taken by the Russian icebreaker Victory. And the thing why I point this out is because this is an indication that the pole has no longer proceeded in that single vector towards Siberia. It's actually deviated and done so by around about 200 miles southeasterly. And those are the sorts of signs that we should be looking out for indications of not just great changes. And this is the first time in its migration that it's behaved quite differently, and the fact that it's no longer travelling in that straight vector. This could be the visual signs now of weakening of the magnetosphere and a slowing down of the magneto. That drives the magnetic pole dipoles, whatever you want to call them. That region where the magnetic North Pole is right now is around this region here, and just bear in mind all this blue region and purple region is the coldest regions in the Arctic Circle, and you can see that in the centre there is like a point at where it's warmer compared to either the left side or the right side. I've been calling these regions plumes, and the reason for that is when we look on the magnetic map we'll see a very similar picture to where these colder regions are, such as over in the Antarctic. On the one side you'll see that there's a larger plume that extends right over almost to Australia, and on the left side a very weak plume. and in the centre is where the magnetic North Pole is, and this is really where the North Pole is starting to break into two poles. And we know what will be the implications of that break at that point. They will be looking for their antipoles to reconfigure, and at that point we will be in those weak field lines, and the Earth will be in a full transition of magnetic reversal. I suspect there may be, at least at this point, 4 poles, and during the weak field lines over a period of about 3 months or less, probably much less, 2 of these poles would have found their antipoles connected, and then the other 2 will have followed suit, and in turn they will reconnect all back up, forming a new magnetic North Pole over somewhere on the Earth. It's anyone's best guess where this could be, but I would say that the poles will form in the cooler regions simply for the fact that magnetism, or the magnetic anomaly that you get with magnets, doesn't seem to like warm climates. It seems that the warmth seems to affect the magnetism, so I wouldn't expect the new magnetic poles to reconfigure around the equatorial region for that reason. Just to show you those regions where they're cooler but also seem to be overlaid where the stronger magnetic field plumes are over the North Pole, we can see that somewhere in the centre is where the magnetic dipole is at the moment, and we can see 2 large plumes. These large plumes are where the colder regions are, and it stands to reason that if we have stronger magnetic plumes which are tending towards very slowly towards the equatorial region, and that could be the reason why we're getting these record-breaking temperatures in places like the South China Islands and places like that. It could well be the reason for that. Again, I mentioned the stronger magnetic plume just creeping up on Australia there, and the weaker one over the left. But when you look at the temperature chart that I just showed, you see these plumes seem to be where it dictates it's going to be cooler, and in the weaker parts warmer, and that especially is the case for where the magnetic North Pole is right now over the northern hemisphere. The real true implications for what we are going to face in a short distance of time on this planet can only be speculated on. I don't believe for 1 minute that the world governments aren't aware of what we're facing with regards to this anomaly. I think that they've taken on board the fact that it's a very rare event, and I believe they have conclusive evidence already that it's responsible for the increase in magnitude in earthquakes, the increase in volcanic eruptions, the increase in tornadoes, hurricanes, cyclones, etc., etc. And these, of course, these flash floods that we're getting all over the world. I think that the Svalbard seed bank, is preparation for such an event. I believe that the incorporation of Monsanto to genetically modify crop seeds that can handle different climates and changes in climates and still produce are part of that plan that they know and some others know is taking place, and is going to be needed more and more. One of the problems that Monsanto seem to have is that they can't adjust the crops to the climate, because 1 year it might show signs of drought. They might expect that could be the prolonged pattern of weather, and therefore they introduce crop seeds that can withstand drought much easier, and all of a sudden they start having bigger monsoons and floods than they've ever had, and of course that crop is not designed for that climate. I've said so before in videos that it probably would have been a better option to go with what nature had given us, because after all, it weathered hundreds and thousands of years of slowly genetically modifying itself to the climate, and therefore earned its place on this planet. and that's why it's part of its nature. But you know, that this is the sort of thing that we are aware of, and that they have, you know, knowingly told us in the press. We know that there's a seed vault, but they didn't really give us a reason for why we needed the seed vault. We know, likewise, that there are vast underground bases being built, and even the elite are purchasing and building their own private ones. So you have to, at some point, start to ask the question, what is going on? And you know, try and figure it out for yourselves, guys. For the past 6 years, we've been doing our best to get the information out there with regards to this rare event. Can't emphasize that. And the fact that the last time it took place, there was no records for humans to record, and therefore, you know, give an idea as to what to expect. Right now, most people are of the opinion that, you know, the magnetic pole is an isolated mechanism and has no effect on anything else. But, you know, I think I've clearly pointed out over the last year or so that there is definite connections and patterns that show the driving force of not only the jet streams, but most of the northern and southern hemisphere is driven solely by magnetic anomalies associated with the poles. And it shouldn't be, you know, just taken for granted that that is the case, because if we look at other planets, we see that their colder regions on their planets are where the poles was or used to be. So, you know, the magnetic poles, as I've said before, is the major mechanics of a planet. If you were in the business of building planets, you would probably first set about making sure that that planet had a magnetosphere. Not only to protect it from solar inbound radiation and galactic radiation, but for many other reasons that we don't yet understand fully about the importance of a magnetosphere and a functioning magnetic pole. So, guys, you know, I want to thank the couple of people that managed to donate something towards the channel. That says on average we get around one donation. It usually isn't a lot of money. By no means am I trying to make a living here, but it is nice when people do appreciate what you do and what you spend your time invested in, and know that it is not just for my own benefit, but it is for the benefit of those thousands and thousands of people that do view these videos every month. On average, around 70,000 views, and increasing all the time. So, you know, I want to thank those people that take the time out to make a donation, and especially probably that one person that's going to make that one donation today. I want to thank you in particular. Guys, I won't take up much more of your time. You know, we're still very much invested in bringing quality information with regards to the poll, and you know, your donations and contributions are massively appreciated and do support the effort. If you want to make a donation, the link is down there in the description. Please feel free, and again, thanks to those that have already, and you enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll catch you again. I'll say what I usually do. Bye for now.